And okay. Well, happy Wednesday, everyone. I want to welcome everyone and excited that you are joining us. And as you're joining in, make sure that you let me know in the chat where you are tuning in from. Would love to know. And also, if you are catching this on the replay, please use hashtag replay so we will know that. And I am going to take just a quick moment to introduce myself. If I am new to you and you are new to me, let me tell you, my name is Beverly Smith, and I am the founder of Career Success Strategies. I'm the former owner of a staffing and recruiting firm, so I know firsthand what hiring managers are looking for, and I'm using that knowledge to help mid and senior level professionals build their resumes so that they can land the career of their dreams. So last week, if you joined me, we talked about how to make your job search more enjoyable. So if you missed that, though, make sure you go back and catch the replay. My YouTube channel is at Beverly Smith Resumes, and just go to the live tab and you will find all of my videos there. So, but this week I am so excited to have Bethany Wallace back in the house with us. You may remember she joined us earlier this month. Gosh, Bethany, it's hard to believe that November is almost over.
I know.
I mean, you were literally on the first, and now you are literally on almost the last day of the month. So, y'all, Bethany's going to share her perspective on the importance of soft skills in the workplace, and she is going to tell us how to use those in the job interview. So, hang on, and I'm trying to pull up your bio right now. Give me just a second. We were laughing because we had a little bit of tech issues getting started here, but I think there we go. Sorry about that. Bethany Wallace partners with mission-minded organizations to build better workplaces through soft skills solutions, including soft skills training and train the trainer sessions for leaders. Additionally, Bethany serves as a stateside missionary for Wycliffe Bible translators, and Bethany enjoys presenting at talent acquisition conferences and for other organizations. She also loves guesting on podcasts and webinars, which we're so glad that she wanted to join us today. She is or has contributed to job boards and publications, including Higher Ed Jobs, Lenza, College Recruiter, Forbes, and Glassdoor. Bethany has also published 4 books and manages her own blog and podcast devoted to gratitude. She served in higher ed for 12 years and also has experience in content management and nonprofit leadership. Bethany earned her Master of Arts degree in English at Arkansas Tech University and her Bachelor's of Art degree at Lyon College. So, hey, Bethany, before we jump in, though, tell us just briefly about your work at Wycliffe Translators and what it means to be a stateside can't talk today, missionary. I think most people, when they think about missionaries, we think of someone that goes off to a foreign country. So I think this is a really cool opportunity, and I'd love the audience to know just a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm serving with Wycliffe, and I started doing that just in June, so I'm still really new. And I don't have the option to go overseas right now because I have a young daughter, and so the stateside option was a really good one for me. And so a lot of people who are stateside with Wycliffe Bible Translators just support a lot of the work that is going on overseas.
Mhm.
And then also is work in the United States too that has to do with like church relations, building churches up and kind of helping them to understand the need to be involved in missions and planning vision trips and things like that. But my role will be to support translation work that's going on overseas, specifically in Asia. And so I'm really excited because it's part of the world that I love. And yeah, so
That is so cool, and yeah, I'm really glad that you have been able to find that opportunity as well. But I'm glad that you still kind of keep in touch with some of the things that you've done before. And I know that you recently spoke at the Arkansas SHRM conference. So that's really interesting too, that you have stayed in touch with all the HR folks that you've been working with in the past.
yeah, I'm grateful that I'm able to do that and still dabble a little bit in my business, but devote most of my attention to Wycliffe.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in. We're going to talk today a little bit about soft skills and using them in the interview situation. But before we jump into some of our thoughts on that, I want you to take a few minutes and just remind the audience, because I'm sure there's some people that maybe haven't watched the previous one from November 1st, which you can also go back and catch the replay on my YouTube channel. But tell us a little bit about what soft skills are. What does that term really mean? And how is that different from hard skills?
Sure. So I would say hard skills are usually technical skills or skills that can really easily be quantified and qualified, like things that you're doing that um, you can also easily be trained on.
Mhm.
So things like managing other people or anything to do with computer software or hardware or in the business world, maybe like understanding accounting principles. Those would be hard skills. Soft skills are a little more intangible. They're interpersonal skills. So any skill that is needed and utilized when you're interacting with other people, and things that are a little more abstract, because like critical thinking and problem solving are considered soft skills, which you
Mhm.
don't think of as an interpersonal skill. It's more like something going on in your brain, but it affects the way that you interact with other people. Like if you're working on a team and you're not a critical thinker, then you're not really adding as much to the discussion or the strategy. So soft skills are interpersonal and they're a combination of talent and ability. So it's partly, yes, what you're born with and what you're naturally good at, but it's
Mhm.
also, there's that portion of ability that is teachable, that you can learn and you can improve on. And so I think that a lot of times when I work with people, they think that there's no point in training on soft skills or trying to improve them because they're either good at it or they're not. But that's really just a myth about soft skills.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I could say as from a standpoint of an employer, um, I know when we looked for people, some of the hard skills are the ones that are easier to train on than anything else. And then, it's the soft skills though. If people are pretty strong in certain soft skills, those are the things that while you can train and improve, I feel like you almost have to be kind of motivated to want to improve on that.
Yes.
So, David Ball joins us and he says it sounds like soft skills are more toward the emotional intelligent category, or intelligence category, with emotions and reactions regarding or into reading the room. So I think that's a good point too.
Yeah,
Um,
and I did like this whole thing on emotional intelligence and soft skills because I think they work together. They're not the
mhm,
same thing, but they definitely complement each other because you could have all the like to-dos and knowledge of how to communicate, but if you aren't emotionally intelligent enough to keep in mind how somebody else is feeling or the mindfulness part of practicing your soft skills, I think falls with emotional intelligence. So you can't
yeah.
really have one without the other and do it well.
I think that's a great point. Well, I want to jump in and talk a little bit more about the interview process. Why do you feel like the interview is really the perfect opportunity for a job seeker or a job candidate to demonstrate his or her soft skills?
Well, I think it's best and better than a resume or a cover letter or even a phone call, because most interviews, there are phone interviews, but most interviews allow you interaction,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's over Zoom or video conferencing platform, or if it's face to face in person in the on the employer site, work site. But that personal interaction, ability to see people's reactions and their body language, their facial expressions, hear their tone of voice, um, and just interact in a real setting, I think lends itself to you being able to practice your soft skills because they're interpersonal skills. And also it gives you a chance to react in real time to situations in front of the employer. So let's say like the employer is sitting in front of you at a table during the interview and they spill their coffee.
Uh-huh.
You get to have a reaction to that. Let's say the coffee gets on you, then what do you do? Can you be like gracious and calm and make them feel at ease and still bring it back to the topic of the interview? And if you can do those kinds of things and do them well, then interviews are like your best friend in your job search.
Sure, sure. Kind of an opportunity, just playing on that example too, to demonstrate your proactiveness too, like being the one that's willing to help jump in and clean up and things like that, where it's kind of like you said, make the other person too feel at ease as well, which is kind of interesting because it most of the time we would think of like the employer being the one to make the other person feel at ease. But I think there's a two-way street. You have to remember that both parties are actually interviewing each other, if you think about it.
Yes. Like, I can't remember if we talked about this last time, but since we were talking about resumes more, but I was just telling one of my friends the other day who's in management, and they're interviewing some people right now, that he was like, yeah, I'm just having a hard time. Like, I can find good people, but not people who are really the fit. And so that's what I'm looking for in the interview. And I said, yeah, if you're honest, then what you're looking for as a leader is somebody who, if you hire them, you could sit in a car with them for 4 hours on the way to a conference and they wouldn't drive you crazy. Like, oh my gosh, yeah.
I love that.
But that's really what we're all, just people at the end of the day. And so we want to be around people who are good people and who know how to interact with us easily, and where it doesn't always feel forced or awkward or tense or any of those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about which soft skills should a job candidate highlight or emphasize during their job interview?
Well, I think first communication, because this is your chance to communicate in some kind of way that is a little more, channel rich. So there's all that body language and facial expressions and voice tone and fluctuation and that stuff. So take advantage of it and like highlight your communication skills for sure. And that really involves keeping in mind that it's not just about how you respond verbally to questions, because the listening portion in an interview is really big. And if you, especially in the part where you're asking them a question, like, can you tell me a little bit more about the day-to-day life in this job role or something? And they're responding to you. And sometimes, as we all know, employers can be really long-winded and their responses may be way more than you ever hoped to know. But being able to pay attention and look like you're paying attention by not fidgeting around or looking at your phone, that kind of stuff is important. And sometimes I think we take it for granted that everyone just does that in an interview, but all you have to do is talk to like 10 random human resources people or managers, and you'll find out that no, not everyone does look like they're listening or look like they really care. So kind of practicing that stuff in advance is helpful. Like doing like what Beverly and I are right now, like just jump on Zoom with somebody and have them ask you 10 common interview questions and you respond, and then let them give you feedback. And it doesn't have to be somebody who's a recruiter, although it's helpful if you have like a great career coach or someone, or at least a career mentor with some career experience who can help.
I think that's a great suggestion. A couple of other things that I might add to that as well is it is okay for you to take in a folder with a pad of paper and take notes. I personally feel like I do a better job of listening if I'm jotting down things, because it keeps me from maybe losing my train of thought or jumping way ahead to my next question. So if I'm paying attention to what it is they're saying, or if I can jot down that next question or a reminder so that I'll give them that space to finish saying what they're saying. The other thing I would add is you talked about body language, and I think it's so interesting. You and I didn't talk about this beforehand, but I posted a video yesterday on body language, and I think it is a huge area that you can practice on. And one of the things that I think is a good way to start that practice is start just observing people and look at body language that resonates with you and start saying, well, why does that resonate with me? Or what is off-putting to me? And then reflect back on yourself. Do I do those things? Do people resonate with me? Or could it be possibly that I'm doing this and I'm off-putting? I'm sitting holding my phone. And, so body language is crucial, which, by the way, please don't take this into the interview. That's a terrible thing to do. So, well, let me move on to our next question. Okay. If I feel like I lack strong soft skills and I have an upcoming job interview, how would you coach me through that situation?
Over months and months. For one thing, I mean, seriously, this is something to think about. If you are aware that you lack a certain soft skill, like you don't communicate well, you know all the right things to say, but you aren't a good listener or something like that, then at the beginning of your job search or before your job search is the time to start working on that stuff. Because it takes practice, and there's no way you can practice something repeatedly, giving space in between so that your brain has a rest and all that, if you were to retain it and process it, unless you give yourself ample time. I've had people reach out to me like the day before their interview and be like, I just feel like my communication skills aren't good enough, or I have a hard time like keeping eye contact. I'm like, I mean, we could do a session, but one session before your interview is not going to help you grow that much. It's really something you have to practice. So practice, and give yourself lots of time. And really, for any soft skill, it's practice that is going to help you improve it. And real feedback, like honest feedback from someone who is not biased. So that's why I said, like, get a career coach or an interview coach or a mentor who doesn't mind being honest with you in a constructive way. You don't want somebody just ripping you apart, but somebody who will give you feedback, and so that you can take it and apply it the next time that you practice, and they give you more feedback. And that process of back and forth like that is really critical if you actually want to grow in any area of your soft skills. Even if it's something like collaboration, which maybe you would think, how am I going to display that in the interview? Well, it'll be a lot easier to talk about and to demonstrate it if you're already working on that outside of an interview setting. So finding a way to interact with people more often at work, or if you're not at work, like volunteer, get out there and like be a part of a team or a group and practice those collaboration skills. So then when you're asked, tell me about a time when you had to be part of a team and how did it go, or what project did you work on? Then you have real examples, because you're not just sitting by yourself. And especially for people who work remotely, I think this is getting like more and more critical, because our soft skills atrophy if we're not using them. Just like muscles, you know. So you have to practice. You've got to get around people to practice soft skills. So spending time with people,
Yeah, definitely. That's such a good point. And it's just, I know you coach people in interview strategies. I cannot tell you enough. I can't emphasize enough. Just the whole practicing and preparing for the interview. Preparation for the interview is more than just researching the employer and learning. I mean, that's extremely important. But one of the things I always recommend is to do a search and find those basic questions that people tend to ask in interview and practice answering those. Like you mentioned earlier, jump on a call with somebody or, sit down with a friend and have them ask you those and just practice responding in front of another person. And if you don't have another person, worst case, practice responding in front of the mirror, just so you can see yourself and focus on how you react to certain situations as well.
Yeah. And I think like practicing those responses, especially to behavioral interview questions, that's really important in terms of like showing your soft skills or making sure that the employer understands that you do have experience in those areas of soft skills. And so one thing I would do is the same thing that I mentioned when you're working on your resume is look at that job posting and figure out which soft skills they're highlighting or requesting that you have, or maybe they put them in the must-have category. But, if you see communication skills and conflict management and customer service, then you need to look, when you're looking at a big list of common interview questions, look for questions that touch on those soft skills and make sure you have good responses that are not just abstract. About how you feel or what you think about something, because you need to be able to give real world examples. Like one time when I was working with this person, she continually came back at me with an attitude and I wasn't really sure how to take it. And so I tried to just build a better relationship with her and get to know her. I tried to continually be kind to her. And over time we got to know each other better and blah, blah, blah. But giving a specific story or example that isn't really long is a good way during those interview questions, during your response time, to let them know you have those soft skills because you're giving them real experiences and examples. So they don't have to think, oh, well, she seems like she knows a lot about that. But can they walk away knowing that you've actually practiced that stuff in real life?
Such a good point. Good point. And, I think just in the course of conversations in general, it's the stories that people find most interesting too. So that's another great way just to make yourself stand out in an interview. So one of the things I want us to talk about before we sign off is I want to talk about soft skills, like trends that you have seen employers hiring for in 2023 and projecting out into 2024. What are some things that, as a job seeker, that we should be aware of as this is kind of going to be more in demand?
So the first one that comes to mind is definitely around DEI or DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so that's not really a soft skill. That's an effort by employers. But in order to practice those principles and put them into place in the workplace, you have to have strong soft skills. And mindfulness, I would say, which again is kind of blurs that line between emotional intelligence and soft skills, but being mindful in the way you communicate is really important if they're looking for somebody who can come join their team, who is going to be able to practice DEIB on a day-to-day basis. They're looking for somebody who's really thoughtful about the words that come out of their mouth, the looks on their face, all those things. So that's really one that, and I think that was a big one this year. It'll be big next year, probably bigger. And then also, I think communication skills constantly are being scrutinized and are such a huge need because we have Gen Z in the workplace now, and a lot of Gen Z graduates and entry-level employees really are struggling with their communication skills, partly because of COVID, because there was just so much isolation and changes in the way that we had to interact and communicate. And so there's sort of still that learning curve for a lot of Gen Z members. And so employers know that. So they're looking for people who stand out. So if they're interviewing 10 people for an entry-level job, if you have really strong communication skills, then they're going to know that they don't have to worry about that with you, and they're not going to have to spend their money and time on that with you. So making sure that you communicate that to the employer is really important, and it gives you a leg up on other, candidates. And then probably I would say another one is really adaptability or flexibility, because it's a great soft skill for anybody to have, but I think it's really important right now because the workplace is changing. There's so many, like the DEIB initiatives that have been pushed through the COVID and after COVID world, changing from a traditional bricks and mortar sort of setting to hybrid settings or remote settings, and all the technology that is involved in the work now. Employers need to know that you're a candidate who can go with the flow, adapt to change well, learn quickly, be open-minded, not come in thinking you know everything, because none of us know everything. And especially in today's workplace, no one really knows what's going on. We're all just going with the changes and changing with things and with each other. So making sure they see that in you, that you're adaptable and flexible, and being able to share specific examples of times when you have adapted and been flexible and open-minded and willing are really, those are really sought after. And I hear those things as needs from employers all the time.
I would say that adaptability and flexibility has been one that's been important in the workforce for years. And I'm so glad you brought up the topic of Gen Z. It's not something that I had thought to ask you about, but I'm glad you brought it up, because I do feel like, especially having come from the employer side, this is something that we've really got to extend some grace to them, but also be prepared to coach them up on as well, so that they definitely know, and hopefully that they are adaptable and flexible and willing to learn. I think that is particularly a generation that really could benefit from some interview coaching and preparation as well.
Yeah, and definitely the employers coming. I think more and more employers are starting to understand that they may not be able to find the exact people they're looking for if they're hiring from Gen Z, because there aren't as many Gen Z candidates who are strong in soft skills as there were in previous generations. And I think employers are kind of having the come to Jesus realization of that, and starting to understand, like, okay, yeah, we're going to have to actually provide some coaching, some training, some mentorship. There are lots of different things that employers can do, and not all of them cost money. But just being willing to bring someone in at 80% of where you want them to be is something that I think employers are having to do more and more.
Sure. David makes a really great point. He says, hard to have a conversation with Gen Z or millennials. Speech is different with so many acronyms, eye contact, and vocabulary. Yes, definitely. And it's definitely an area where both sides need to work on those communication skills with each other. I feel like, and make an effort there.
Yeah.
Definitely. This has been such a great conversation, and I'm just so appreciative to you for jumping back on with us. I want you to tell us the best places for people to follow you. And while you do that, I'm going to throw them into the comments so people can do that as well.
Okay, sure. So probably LinkedIn is the best because I share on LinkedIn about my business and thoughts on the workplace and job search and all that stuff. And then also some things about Wycliffe. And my link or whatever on LinkedIn is just Bethany Wallace. That's my handle or whatever. And then I also have a Facebook page I don't use as much, but it's Bethany Wallace Communications and Consulting. And then people can reach out to me through my website as well, which is BethanyWallaceCo.com.
Very good. Very good. Okay. I've put those in the chat. I would encourage you guys to make sure that if you are not following Bethany, do that. Make sure there's a little bell that you can click, and that way you get notified when she does post, because she always posts really good content on LinkedIn, and she's pretty consistent over there. So, and that's actually how you and I originally met, that we have lots of mutual friends because we're both here in Arkansas. So, I will just say it was really cool when we finally did get to meet in real life. But I want to add one more thing, because I know Bethany will not say this. Her position as a stateside missionary, she raises funds in order for to be able to do that. And so she will not pitch this. I know she won't, but I'm going to pitch for her. If you feel so inclined to support her mission efforts, I've thrown up some information about Wycliffe here. Do your research on Wycliffe Bible translators. And if you feel inclined, reach out to Bethany and find out how you can support her. Let's do our part and get her fully funded so that she can go do God's work and help us get God's word out there to people. So, Bethany, thank you so much. And I just want to say to our audience, I would love to know your biggest takeaways. Please put those in the comments. If you are watching this on the replay again, use hashtag replay. Thank you guys for those of you who have joined us. And I also want to add that I have available for you a free gift. It is all about using LinkedIn. It's your LinkedIn success blueprint. It's a checklist. It's a step-by-step checklist that is going to walk you through how to maximize your profile and how to become more visible on there. It is free to you. And let me also drop that link real quick for you in the chat, so you make sure that you catch that and grab that as well. So give me just a second to do that. Next week, we have my friend Amy Langston joining us. Amy, like me, her background is in the staffing industry, but she is now working as a recruiter for an IT firm, and I cannot wait for her to talk about what you need to do in order to be stand out and be found by recruiters. So please join us next Wednesday at the same time, 12:30. Look forward to seeing everyone, and we will see you again next week. Bye now.
Thanks, Beverly.